It's a
CJ
two-man
Stroud's
race. CJ Stroud's winning the Heisman. He's getting his Heisman moment against Michigan, and then he's going to do the Desmond Howard in the end zone.
Welcome back to the Boyz and Ball Podcast for our college edition, where we talk the latest in college sports. Let's go.
All right, so at the time of this recording, the college football playoff has just come out. So Georgia, for multiple weeks in a row, is coming at number 1. They're going on the road to Kentucky to play Will Levis, who is a projected first-round pick. Is this a game where Kentucky could possibly stun Georgia?
No, I don't think so. I think this Georgia team's way too good. And Kentucky's kind of fallen from grace. They don't have really a chance of beating a team like Georgia. And it's not like when we talked about like a slip-up game with some of the other teams. Georgia's a team that will come in and do what they need to do. Like, unless they're playing someone like Bama, when it's a good Bama team, they don't really have a chance of slipping up.
Yeah, I don't see this Georgia team losing again until LSU, because right now the SEC championship is set. We know exactly who's going. It's Georgia and LSU. So that's the only game I can see them losing. The rest of the schedule, they got Kentucky and Georgia Tech the next 2 weeks, and I just don't see them losing one of those games.
I don't think they'll drop to Kentucky as well. I feel like the LSU matchup is going to be the tone setter for the season if they're going to be a boom or bust team in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, LSU I think can be a challenge, but this is also an LSU team that got clapped by Tennessee. I know they're hot lately. They've beaten some good teams, but I don't know. I feel like even in that LSU game, Georgia's going to take care of business again. It's going to be a three touchdown win. I think Georgia rolls into the playoff undefeated.
I will respectfully disagree with you, and I feel like maybe Georgia has a chance to lose this SEC championship game.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's always a chance. Never say never. But coming in at number 2, Ohio State. Ohio State just absolutely shellacked Indiana. Now, this was not a good Indiana team, but Ohio State's issue the past couple weeks was running the football. They did not do it well. Mayan Williams got hurt in the second quarter of that game, and he had 15 carries for 147 yards in the second quarter when he got hurt. They focused on running the ball. The run game was so much better. Travion Henderson's supposed to be back either next week or against Michigan. Jackson Smith and Jigba is supposed to have limited reps against Maryland this week. This is an Ohio State team that is trending upward. The defense is still playing lights out, and Ohio State has made a focus to play more physical football on the offensive side. I like Ohio State here. I think Ohio State's going to shellac Maryland, and honestly, I feel like they're going to get a really good win against Michigan.
I'll throw the shade at the Maryland fans. This is pretty much a bye week for Ohio State. I'll be that guy. It's to get some of those guys that are coming in off of injury, give them some limited time, like Jackson Smith and Jigba. It's going to be needed because we're going to need him for that big game against that team up north.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to get him with some reps on this team. He hasn't played a lot this season. So inserting him against Michigan full reps is not always a great play. I know he's, arguably the best receiver in college football, but he hasn't played all year. He doesn't really have a flow in the offense with the way Marvin Harrison has stepped up. So this game against Maryland is going to be big to getting him into the flow of the offense because he hasn't played all year with these guys.
Yeah. I think if they can get him some limited reps and get the ball in his hands a couple times, see where he's at, coming back and see if he can be kind of explosive and get him some limited touches, I feel like, he could be ready to go for a little bit of a heavier workload against the Michigan team that we're going to see in 2 weeks.
Yeah, unfortunately with Ohio State, they only really ever get like 2 big challenges a year. So it's like kind of hard to see how they're going to play against some of these college football teams because like the only 2 good teams that, they play are Penn State and Michigan. Occasionally there's a Michigan State team that's good, but most other games they just curb stomp everyone else.
Now hear me out. Wild take. Notre Dame is a similar team to Michigan. Ohio State has already played a similar team to Michigan. Can't really pass the ball. Absolutely run heavy, and they rely on their defense. That is exactly who Notre Dame is.
Yeah, but Notre Dame doesn't have a Heisman candidate on their team. They got Blake Corum, at the running back position. Like they had almost 400 yards between two running backs in one game.
That's great. How many rushing yards has Ohio State given up? Not that many.
Yeah, well, like I said, it's a challenge. Like, they could curb stomp them, but at the same time, like, this is like where you really see where your team's going to be at for the playoffs.
I think this Ohio State team gets back to the Dwayne Haskins era of Ohio State, and we're about to hang 50 up on Michigan.
I'd prefer the Cardale Jones era because that era won us shit.
Well, I mean, during that era, I think we ripped off 10 straight wins. So or no, we were like 12-1 against Michigan in the past 13 years before last year. So, I mean, we have Michigan's number. They're not going to beat us 2 times in a row. It's just not going to happen.
Especially not if they're coming to visit us at the shoe. No way.
Yeah, not going to happen. Not happening. You got a perfect storm. You had great pass rushes with Michigan last year against a banged up Ohio State team that's defense wasn't playing that good. You got it's a completely different Ohio State team, and they've been looking at this game all year.
Like we do every year.
Every year. Mark it on the calendar. The clock's running in the locker room.
Hey, we could lose every game, every season, as long as we beat Michigan. Most Ohio State fans will be happy.
I don't know if I'll agree with that, but you got to beat Michigan every year.
Yeah, that's the must.
You got to beat Michigan, but also if we go 1-11 and beat Michigan, Ohio State fans are also not happy.
Yeah, but like we beat Michigan.
We expect to play for championships. But we talked a little bit about Michigan. Michigan came in at number 3. They got Illinois this week. This Illinois team has been playing pretty good, but they did just lose to Michigan State. Does Illinois get clapped here?
Yeah, I think
Michigan
so.
State does absolutely derail Iowa or Illinois.
Illinois, they did. Yeah.
Yeah.
They just derailed them absolutely. I mean,
it was like a 2-touch or like a one score win. I think it was a 6-point win, but it was a Michigan State team that was struggling. They just had like 7 players get suspended because of the jumping of a Michigan player.
Oh.
So he took the wrong path in the tunnel, and the Michigan State players let him know.
Fair enough, I guess.
They said those ain't your block, homie.
But this Illinois, I like this Illinois team to give Michigan some trouble, but I think this is going to be the story of Michigan football this year. The game's going to be close in the first half, and then they're going to pull away in late third, fourth quarter, and they're going to win by 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah, I had higher hopes for this Illinois team. Maybe get a couple good wins in and maybe develop some, but it looks like it's just another Big Ten West team. Doing the same thing they do every year.
Yeah, and it looks like they're going to be the team that comes out. They're going to have 3 losses. If they're ranked, they're going to be ranked right around 25. It's not really a good win for anyone. It's a ranked win, but like
exactly,
it's not. You didn't beat anyone good. Like they were only ranked because of how many wins they had, not because they were blowing teams out. Like Illinois has been playing close games all year. I see Michigan taking care of business here, but again, in 2 weeks, that team up north is going down.
All right. So I know what TCU is at 4. Which is
your boy Max Duggan.
Something I want to talk about is a lot of people were kind of like, I know TCU. A lot of people thought TCU was going to beat Texas last week. They beat Texas. Now I think
an atrocious game.
It was an awful game. I'm not saying it was a good game.
It was 3-0 at halftime. It was an awful game.
But they do have to play Baylor this week, and Baylor was, ranked at the beginning of the year. And it's always tough to play, an in-conference team, and especially a little Texas rivalry going on.
Yeah, and Baylor's not out of contention for the Big 12. They need a little bit of chaos, and if they get this win, they still have a shot.
Yeah.
I mean, they need Kansas State to drop basically their next 2 games and Oklahoma State to drop a game. But Baylor still has an outside shot to make the Big 12 championship game. They know that. They're going to come to play. I expect this to be a closer game, but more high scoring than the Texas TCU game.
This is my pick of the upset watch of the week game right here. As much as I love the the TCU team this year and how well they played, I definitely think that this is a game that you could see TCU lose their first game and possibly drop out of CFP contention.
No,
I will not turn my back on these Horned Frogs. I think they'll come in and take care of business this week.
Let's also address this. TCU's defense has been awful all year. Last week against Texas, they bullied Texas. Bijan Robinson, who's one of the best running backs in college football, they held him to 12 carries for 29 yards.
Yeah.
Like that offense struggled, and the TCU defense said, "You've been carrying us all year.
We got
We'll
you, boss.
carry you this
We
week."
got you, fam. Yeah. No.
I mean, held them scoreless for the first half. Held Texas scoreless in the first half. Like in college football, that is not easy to do.
Yeah,
No.
especially with some of those high-powered offenses out there, with such like how a lot of the passing game in college is. You see the team that like to sling the rock around. So, we're just going to come here and go 3 or 4 wide.
Yeah, there's a lot
Most
of air.
places.
There's
That's
a lot
just-
of air raid going
yeah.
on.
Yeah,
That's
there's
just
a lot
what
of
we're gonna
spread, a lot of throwing the football, a lot of 50 pass games in college football. Normally college football games, even if you get blown out, you still score 17 points.
Yeah.
True.
So it's, college football is different from the NFL in that way. But this TCU defense came to play, and I hope that continues to trend. And this TCU defense has kind of found their
groove late in the season.
Found their groove late in the season, and allows TCU to go for a good push here. Because if that defense had continued to play, they would have been the typical Big 12 team to make the playoff. It's all offense, no defense, and they lose in the first round of the playoff, 49-56.
Yeah, just a crazy high game, but
that's how Oklahoma's done it. Like it's just the Big 12 just doesn't play defense. But if TCU's defense can continue to trend, they got this Baylor team that's they're 6-4, but it's still a good team. They got an easier game against Iowa State to end the year, and then we don't know exactly who they're going to play, but it's likely they're going to play Kansas State in a rematch in the Big 12 championship game.
Yeah, definitely. But I feel like we still need a little chaos for TCU. I'd like to see TCU bump up to number 3 in the rankings, because I feel like if they have to play, I feel like
they will.
Yeah, well, yeah, because someone's gonna.
Ohio State, Michigan, one of them's dropping.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. In 2 weeks, they'll replace Michigan there. Don't worry.
Yeah, but it will suck if they have to play Georgia really early, in the playoffs.
That'll be a tough one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Not saying Ohio State will be easier, but I feel like they have a better chance. It's a better matchup for them to play the first game.
I don't know. Ohio State might be worse.
That's blasphemy. Don't say that down.
Ohio State might be worse because Ohio State's offense is better than Georgia's offense, and Ohio State's defense has been playing just as good as Georgia's defense.
Oh no, yeah, no, but I think Georgia is like definitely a little bit more defensive minded than Ohio State is. Ohio State's a little bit more balanced, and TCU is like the full offensive spectrum Big 12, casual. So that's what I mean. Like it's a more balanced game, like an offensive team.
It's a more NFL style game that Georgia's going to bring you.
Yeah, which is always tougher for those pure air raid teams.
Definitely. I mean that's kind of where you see the separation between those elite programs and then everyone. You see a lot of teams run that air raid offense because it's the equalizer in college football.
Yeah.
I don't have to have a great offensive line, and I still have a chance to beat you because I can get the ball out of my hands quick. I can challenge you vertically. Force you to play a perfect game on the back end, or I'm getting a one-play touchdown.
Easy to find the seams, easy to find the pockets and the zones and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's the equalizer, and that's why you see a lot of those mid-level teams to borderline contenders run that air raid offense. It just works. But when you get up against Ohio State or Georgia or Alabama, it doesn't work and you lose.
Because they have those fine-tuned defenses that'll be like, hey, we can score on offense, but like also our defense got the straps.
Well, and we have Jeff Okudah or Marshawn Lattimore or Denzel Ward. We're going to take away your best receiver because normally your best receiver accounts for a third of your receiving yards in college football. We're going to take away your best receiver. He's not going to do anything all game. We're going to force your wide receivers 2, 3, and 4 to beat us. Not going to happen. But number 5, Tennessee. Tennessee is sitting at 5, but the reality is the second that Ohio State-Michigan game is over, they're in the top 4. They're at number 5 just because there's 4 undefeateds. The playoff wants them in. The committee wants them in. They have South Carolina this week, trash game. They're gonna put up 60 points on them like they did against Missouri, and then they play Vanderbilt the next week. They play two awful teams back to back. This is a team that's going to be 11-1 and not play for a conference championship and make the playoff.
See,
Hey,
now,
sometimes Vanderbilt's one of those sneaky teams that can give some teams some issues.
The Vanderbilt is 1-5 in the SEC.
Yeah, hey, sometimes they might make it happen. Maybe they'll put it all together one time for the one time.
Maybe.
so I have a question. So USC is a couple places back, but so how so what do you think? Like USC could win the Pac-12 but do you think they'll still put Tennessee in over them? See, that's what I'm saying.
USC needs a TCU loss.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like it sucks because even though they'll probably finish the season ranked 5, it's probably where they'll finish.
No, I think Michigan will finish ranked ahead of them. Honestly,
yeah.
USC might have, unless Michigan or Ohio State get blown out, that team is not dropping very far. I don't know if USC moves past unless they look absolutely dominant the next couple weeks.
Yeah, because they got to play. Their next 2 games are in fact against 2 ranked teams. So, which is, definitely helps USC's case because they play UCLA, who's 16, and they play Notre Dame, who's 18, to finish the season out. And then they're going to be in the Pac-12 championship if they win out. So, that gives them a chance to play some of the other side, like Oregon or something like that, who's, will probably finish the season ranked going into the conference championship.
Yeah, they'll be ranked pretty good. But again, USC's defense hasn't looked good. They still have LSU ranked above USC at 6.
Yeah.
So, LSU or USC to make it in needs chaos.
Yeah, which sucks. No, that's what I'm saying. It sucks. It's like they're going to have to play 3 ranked games to finish the season out. And, LSU and Tennessee aren't going to play 3 ranked games. They're only going to play, LSU will play 3, but Tennessee will only play 2. And neither of those teams are ranked. LSU will play a ranked team in Georgia in the last week, which they'll probably lose. So,
Yeah, I expect LSU to lose. Now, the biggest thing that could happen is LSU beats Georgia.
But they'll put LSU in over them. They'll put a 2-loss team in over Georgia.
Well, right, but that'll shake everything up because now you can't put in 3 SEC teams.
You sure?
So with Georgia with 1 loss, do they drop out?
Are you sure?
Well, yeah.
Are you sure?
Unless TCU loses. The only way that happens is if Michigan gets blown out and TCU loses, and then maybe we have a conversation like USC and TCU drop a game. Maybe we have a wild conversation about 3 SEC teams making it, but it would have to be the most wild ending to the season possible.
We all know how the CFP feels about the SEC.
Because you have LSU has to win out. Georgia has to win out, losing the SEC championship game, and then Tennessee has to win out. So you're asking 3 teams to win out,
which is hard for 2 of them.
And on top of that, if Michigan and Ohio State is close, they are not putting a 2-loss team in over a 1-loss team. It's not going to happen.
But they would do it over someone like USC who
they will, but it's different because Michigan's gotten the respect to be up there.
Yeah,
USC has had a lot of struggles. Michigan hasn't had a lot of struggles. Ohio State hasn't had a lot of struggles. So you can't nitpick their team. You have this USC team that has lost games or played way too close games because that defense is atrocious. So that's why USC is where they're at, where Michigan and Ohio State have been dominant in a majority of their games.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm just saying, LSU had some struggles, and it would suck to see LSU jump over a solid team like USC.
Well, they wouldn't be jumping over them because they're already ahead of them.
They're already ahead of them, yeah. But
So it's the way the playoff has set it up. If LSU wins out, and TCU drops a game, which is possible with their remaining schedule. It's hard to beat a team twice. And they're going to have to do that with Kansas State, probably. So, I don't know.
But I'm just saying, I just looked at it. USC's only struggled in 1 game. So, that's all I'm saying. And it was against Oregon. It was against Oregon State. That's the only game that was close.
Well, if Dan's technically correct, that's the best time to correct.
So let's have a wild talk here. Okay, so they won 41-35 to Cal, who is not good. It was 1-6 in conference. They won 45-37 against Arizona, who again is 4-6 on the year and 2-5 in conference.
Yeah, Arizona just beat. Didn't they just beat a high profile team?
They just beat UCLA.
Yeah.
Cool. That was their second conference win of the year. And then they lost to Utah 43-42.
But Utah's pretty solid.
So their defense in 3 of their last 4 games has given up 35 plus points.
Yeah, Michigan gave up 27 to Maryland. Who Bruce called a bye week earlier.
Yeah,
So
yeah. 1 week is different from 3 consecutive weeks.
Even if it's Pac-12, it's what do you expect though? It's different.
But that's the point. That's the point I'm making. Because that defense has struggled so much and they're playing close games. Yeah, they beat Cal by a touchdown and they beat Arizona by a touchdown. Those are close games. Those are struggle games.
So another thing is, then should we even have conference championships at this point? If you should give them the best record, because if it's not going to mean anything when it comes close to some of these games, like, is there even a point of trying to win out in your conference other than for prestige within your own conference? Because it doesn't matter if you're one team and they could jump a 2-loss team. Then what was the point of going more perfect?
Well, that's the issue with the college football playoff right now, is they have shown zero consistency. There is no consistency. One year it's, we're going to put in the conference champions. The next year it's, we're going to put in the 4 best teams. The next year it's, we're putting in this one loss over this one because of strength of schedule, even though this one won their conference and this one didn't. Like, they have zero consistency. And that's the issue. So you have to base it off of what they're doing each year. And that's why I say USC really doesn't have a shot, is because of where they're being ranked right now. I don't agree with it. I think if USC wins their conference, they should get in over a 1-loss Tennessee, who didn't win their conference.
Who didn't win their conference. Yeah.
Like, that's what should happen, because you weren't good enough to even play in your conference championship.
Yeah.
That's not, that is what it is. If you the only way, I think a team that didn't win their conference should get into the playoff is if you got multiple 2-loss teams behind them and they're one of the only 1-loss teams.
Yeah.
That's the only way. I agree with you there. The conference championship matter more than it does, but the committee has shown a complete disregard for conference champions. They don't care. They're going to put in the 4 teams they want to put in, and they'll make up whatever excuse they have to do to put them in.
That's why I hate. It's more of like once again, it's kind of like like the NFL All-Star game. It's just a popularity contest, and there's whatever the CFP rankers like voters want. So
Yeah, and they just love the big name schools.
Yeah.
They don't want to see a 1-loss North Carolina in there.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
It's not good for viewership.
Yeah, but the issue is viewership in the college football playoff has been continuously going down.
Yeah.
It's because the playoff is
three
Ohio
teams every year. Yeah.
Yeah, Ohio State and Clemson and Georgia and Alabama are up there every year. But it's not good for the sport when you're putting in the same teams every year.
Yeah.
And that's why I think the college football playoff expanding is good, because it adds in more teams and it makes conference championships matter, because when you expand the playoff, when they expand it to a 12-team playoff, you set it up that the Power 5 conferences, ACC, SEC, Pac-12, Big 12, Big 10, all get an automatic bid for the conference championship.
Yeah, if you
make the conference championship matter,
you get in. Yeah.
1 through 5 is conference champions. You give the best record of the non-Power 5.
Yeah.
You give them a bid. So you always see a Cincinnati or a Tulane or whoever it is that year, you give them a shot. Boise State makes a resurgence, you give them a shot. So the best group of 6 team, like record-wise, you put them in the playoff. And then it's 6, then you make it 6 at-large bids, and you put in the next 6 best teams. Yeah. And, I mean, this year would be a perfect year for a 12-team playoff, because there really are teams. Like 12 teams that could, at least somewhat compete. Like at the bottom end of that, like Oregon, Penn State, Utah, Clemson, you're going to get smacked. But there are that 1 through 7 where you could legitimately look at all those teams the way they played this year and say they do have a shot at the championship. That team, the way they've played, has been good enough at times to win a championship. So I want to see the playoff expanded, and it really is going to need to expand, which it is, when Oklahoma and Texas go to the SEC and when USC and UCLA go to the Big Ten.
Yeah, because there's a lot of like solid.
It has to expand at that point.
There are a lot of solid. Those are some solid programs that are going to get otherwise buried in a conference that they would never see the light of day.
Right. And you're going to have too many teams where you're going to have, you look at this year, if, USC was in the Big Ten and, say everyone has these same records, you have now 3 teams in the Big Ten, just like the SEC has 3 teams that you go, any one of those 3 teams could make the playoff.
Mm-hmm.
They just need that one game to go their way.
Yeah.
And with that 12-team playoff, it fixes that issue. Now, the easier way to fix that issue is you get rid of the super conferences, but that's not going to happen. The super conferences make way too much money. So we have to adapt. The 12-team playoff fixes those issues.
So if the playoffs expand to 12 games, do you think we start being able to see some of those like sneaky 2-loss teams like make it into the tail end of the playoff race?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. That's where that back end is going to be. It's going to be the best, 2-loss teams.
Like you see like an LSU, Bama, teams
or
like
you give, Penn State a chance. Penn State's going to be 10-2 and, they'll make it and they'll have a shot. Now, are they going to win it?
No,
probably not, but you never know.
But there's always a chance now. Like, you allow us for setup for Cinderella runs a little bit better.
Yeah. Well, and you get your viewership back up because now instead of seeing Ohio State, Clemson, Georgia, Alabama every year, you now add in Tennessee, LSU, USC, Alabama, Utah, Penn State. You're adding in so many more markets and so many more fan bases to invest into those games. It's going to make the college football playoff so much more money. It's going to drive up viewership. And honestly, it's going to fix the fact that there are really 4 teams that lead recruiting. And it's because those are the 4 teams that make the playoff every year. And those top recruits want to go play in the playoff.
They want to play for a ship. Yeah.
So it's going to help with recruiting too, because now there's going to be more teams that can say, hey, we've made the playoff 5 years in a row. A Penn State, Ohio State that has missed it a couple years being, 1-loss teams or 2-loss teams. They're now making the playoff and they can now make that pitch to more 5 stars and more 4 stars. Hey, we're making the playoff every year. Like we're just a couple pieces away. Like come join the team.
Now, a quick question.
Yeah.
Do you think that with the 12-team playoff, it makes some of those a little bit more, maybe not like, like they're like, in that like 20 to 25 range, but they're in a little bit more desirable location?
You mean those teams that are landing in the top 25, like at the back end?
They're in like the back end, but like they have good teams because they have location, so players want to go play out there, but they don't have a good enough program to to make because they're never going to be a top 4 team. So like you're never going to get someone like Jackson Smith and Jigba to go out to UCLA because the UCLA would never make a chip. But UCLA was kind of hovering in that 14 to 16 range, and if they had someone like Jackson Smith and Jigba, they might be able to propel into that 12-team playoff, and then they could possibly come a
I don't know. I don't think it helps the recruiting of like a Cincinnati or of a Iowa or a Wisconsin.
That's why I was talking about location, and I said like UCLA, like some of those like really nice like campuses and schools. Like it changed. I think it would change the way that recruiting is done because like no one really wants to go the Bama area. Like yeah, it's like nice and beautiful, it's warm, but it's hot, it's muggy. Same thing with some of those down
You're in the middle of Alabama.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's nothing. That's what I'm saying. Like we see maybe it'll spread to some of those like nicer schools that are close but never really were like a top 25 team.
Maybe I think it really benefits more the LSUs and the USCs and the Penn States that are always in that top 10 every year.
Well, I know
just outside the playoff.
I know Happy Valley's like, a super cool place to, be for school. USC is a beautiful campus. It's California. That's what I'm saying. You're going to change from being like top 4 teams to location, which will I think it will hurt some of those better teams, but it'll help some of those teams that are close with good locations.
Maybe. I mean, it's always possible, but I think it's really just going to help out those teams that finish right around the top 10 every year, but they always finish, in that 8 to 12 range. It's going to help out those teams in recruiting a lot more. I don't know. It's going to fix a lot of things. It's going to make like the where like the transfer portal, where like USC is taking advantage, or UCLA is taking advantage of it this year. You saw what was the team that took advantage of it last year? Michigan State took advantage of it last year.
UCS took advantage of it. They got with Lincoln Riley moving up there, they got a couple good people from Oklahoma.
Yeah, but they just followed him. That's not
quite the same.
I'm talking where UCLA went out and got Zach Charbonnet and a bunch of players there to fix all the holes on their team.
Yeah.
And Michigan State did the same thing last year, where it's like, we have holes, so let's go get Kenneth Walker from Wake Forest and all these other teams to bring in, and you give your team a chance to make a run. I think it's going to open up the door for some of those teams a little bit more to make, a huge play in the transfer portal, kind of go crazy for a year with a team that's like,
almost
a Penn
there.
State that's almost there, and they just go crazy and they get a receiver that was almost a starter at Bama, and they get him to come, and they snipe a couple players, and now you have this team that's like,
so, oh hey, this team could contend because they got these extra pieces that they didn't quite have, because they got this 4-star guy that couldn't quite start at Alabama, or this running back who couldn't quite make the starting lineup at Ohio State, or whatever.
It makes the transfer portal more interesting for sure, and it makes that 6 to 11 range, it makes those teams more desirable destinations than they are now. So I think it'll make it a little bit more competitive in college football, but in the end, I still don't think it fixes the issue of who you're going to see in the championship every year.
No, I don't. Yeah. But I still think
but it does give you the odds of hey, does Penn State stun Georgia one year? They play the game of their life. They have a Micah Parsons who goes just absolutely insane, wins them the game, and they upset a number 1 Georgia or something. Like it adds for fun storylines like that.
I mean, but doesn't that kind of just extend the issue farther back, right? Because like if, I know it's kind of hard to say this, but like if the same top 10 or top 12 teams are getting in every year, and now they're getting this little bit of a recruiting bump, doesn't that just kind of make it everybody who falls out of the top 12, doesn't that just kind of make their programs worse, because now they're like, oh hey, my options are now these 12 teams if I want to play good college football?
The past like 5 years, that what I'm talking about, like that 6 to 12 range, you see consistent teams there. Obviously it varies every year with certain teams moving up and down, but you always see Penn State land in that range. You see Utah land in that range. Like USC is going to land somewhere in that range, or if not into the top 5, depending on every year. LSU always lands in that range. So it's going to make those teams more competitive. Instead of seeing Ohio State dominate the Big Ten, you're going to see a good Michigan team and a better Penn State team and a better USC team. So it's going to make conference play more impactful, which then is going to make bigger plays for the playoff. And then you're also going to give teams like who's the highest ranked group of 6? It's UCF this year. So then you give UCF a chance, who's an 8-2 team. And do they do what they did, a couple of years ago, where they stunned Auburn, this Auburn team that, made a crazy run and won the SEC championship?
Yeah. Which is crazy, because like UCF has been what they had a couple seasons where they went undefeated, like they went 12-0 or whatnot. But obviously they're a group of 6 teams, so they'd never make the CFP. Like it's very tough for them. Like Cincinnati made it last year, but that was
Cincinnati had to be utterly dominant. For 12 games.
And but like USC,
and they still barely made the playoffs.
Yeah, like USC was like hitting I think 7, but it would give them a chance to be involved a little bit more. And so like I think that's something it'd be nice to see. It's like a group of 6 team that becomes more of that elite role in that, instead of kind of flipping around. But it is Heisman time. All right.
Who's on the Heisman Watch?
So the Heisman Watch is CJ Stroud,
Number one, baby. Let's go.
Let's
Hendon-
go.
Hendon Hooker, Blake Corum, Drake May, Caleb Williams, Stetson Bennett, and that's really all that matters.
I mean,
I'm
this
I'm
is
glad Bryce
like
Young's not up there.
Bryce Young has not played well this year.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
glad he's finally getting exposed for the product that he is.
Well, like it has been the whole year. They have to put in like that top 5 for the Heisman Watch. This is a 2-man race. It's been that way the whole year. This is CJ Stroud versus Hendon Hooker.
Yeah.
CJ Stroud is the better quarterback. He has the better stats. His team is better.
Yeah. Well,
As long as Ohio State goes undefeated, give the kid his trophy.
but you know what sucks though is I like Drake May better than I like CJ Stroud or Hendon Hooker. He has better stats than both of the quarterbacks,
Mhm.
but he's not on one of those top couple teams. That's why
Yeah,
he's.
but they lost to Notre Dame, and CJ Stroud beat Notre Dame.
This is true, but we're talking about pure like based off the player, not based off the team.
Yeah. But we know team success plays a part into it, as
But they're-
well as the stats.
But they're a one-loss team too. So I mean, why isn't he above Hendon Hooker then? I get the Bama win or whatever,
Because
but,
it's about the Heisman moments.
yeah, I
So,
don't know. I
Hendon
haven't
Hooker's
watched.
win against Bama, it was a Heisman moment. Them blowing out LSU is a Heisman moment for him.
I don't know. Yeah.
CJ Stroud in the fourth quarter was a Heisman moment against Penn State. It's about having the Heisman moments. Drake May does not have a Heisman moment.
Yeah.
He's not. This isn't like when RG3 won it a couple years ago, where his team had 2 losses, but he still won the Heisman because he went nuts. Or when Johnny Manziel won the
Manziel, yeah.
Heisman and his team had 4 losses. Johnny Manziel beat Bama. He had a Heisman moment.
He went crazy. The Johnny football, like what do you expect, But yeah, no, I definitely. I mean, could you see like someone like Drake May or the Washington quarterback winning the quarterback award?
No.
Nope.
You don't think so? Even though like they're technically having better seasons,
No. It's just you could make a case for Michael Penix with the egregious stats he is putting up, but his team's losing games.
Yeah. Well, that's why I was mainly talking about like Drake May because they are a one-loss team. They're not like it's not like they're that far from being like obviously it's an ACC team. They're not as good, but
Now I will say Drake May could maybe make a name for himself if he goes and bullies Clemson. But the reality is all the Heisman votes are in before the conference championship game week.
True.
So it doesn't matter. He's not going to be able to get a good enough win the rest of the year to get his moment to try to steal some thunder.
Yeah.
Where Hendon Hooker has had his moments and CJ Stroud's about to have his biggest moment.
Yeah, I'm just saying, by the way, that CJ Stroud and Hendon Hooker aren't even top 10 in passing yards.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I know it's all about the moment or whatnot. But
it doesn't matter. And it's about being
It's about
like
showing
said,
up. At
it's
those
a
big moments
popularity
in the game.
contest. We all know it.
Yeah, facts.
You got to
And-
show up at those. You got to show up in the big game, in the big moments. You got to show them who you are. If you can do that more, whether or not if you are not top 10 passing or whatever, if you got better moments, better highlight reels in some games, you're gonna get the trophy.
Now, I think the only player who has a wild outside shot is Caleb Williams
Yeah.
because his team is up there. He's putting up big stats. If he goes absolutely nuts the rest of the year and is basically the only reason USC is winning, he could maybe make it close, but I don't think he can catch up to where the lead that CJ Stroud and Hendon Hooker have. They're too far ahead. It's going to one of them. They've been bouncing back and forth basically every other week on who's on the top. I think CJ's on top right now. It's if CJ Stroud dominates Michigan or leads a big comeback against Michigan and gets that moment, he's winning the Heisman.
Now, could you say the same thing for Blake Corum, the Michigan running back, against Ohio State? If
If he goes for he's got to ball out He's
Yeah,
got to
if he
go
comes
for like
out-
200 and a couple tugs.
Yeah.
He's going to have to go absolutely insane against Ohio State to even have an outside shot.
Well,
Like,
because I'm
like
looking
Bruce
at I'm
said,
looking at
he's
the
going to have
odds
to
right.
have 200 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, I'm looking at the odds right now, and and CJ Stroud's only like plus 130. Henry Hooker's plus 330, and Blake Corum's plus 500. So like it's not far worse. Caleb Williams is in fact plus 1,200 odds to win it.
Yeah, like I said, this is a 2-man race.
Yeah. Well,
There was one of these quarterbacks is winning the Heisman.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone else really has a legitimate shot.
yeah.
I guess if Hendon Hooker drops a game and then CJ Stroud looks utterly awful against Michigan and Blake Corum has, a game of the century against Ohio State, yeah, maybe we can talk Blake Corum for Heisman, but none of those things are going to happen. And CJ Stroud's going to win a Heisman.
Yeah, so that's your pick. You think CJ Stroud's going to be
CJ Stroud's going to win the Heisman because he's going to get his Heisman moment when he throws for 6 touchdowns on Michigan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Clip that.
All right. I remember, and whenever he doesn't throw for 6 touchdowns, and you guys win by a field goal, I will insert that clip into the next video.
As long as we don't win 3-0, I don't give a fuck.
And I will put you on blast for that. Yeah. You don't want to win 3-0. That's not the game plan.
No,
bro. I'm not trying to watch Monday Night Football featuring the Broncos. Okay, we're not trying to do that.
You don't want to watch 60 minutes of football just to see,
to see a 12-9 game. No, I don't want to see that shit.
Come on.
No one wants to see that. That's like watching cancer develop.
And just like every year, the Ohio State-Michigan game is going to come down to 2 factors. Does Ohio State score more than 25 or 28 points? If Ohio State scores more than 28 points, they win the game.
Yeah.
That's the biggest factor. That's the biggest factor.
You know that statistic?
That is I can't back that statistic up with actual statistics, but that's the statistic. Okay.
That's the statistic you're running with.
That's the statistic that I have created, and I haven't been wrong.
Oh,
you heard it here first.
You've never been wrong. All right. Well,
But
yeah.
Ohio State 42-28, 49-28.
Yeah. But getting back to the Heisman, I definitely think that there's the Heisman. It's definitely going to come down to like these last couple games for them because, and it does suck for Hendon Hooker that CJ Stroud does have a huge game against Michigan upcoming, and Tennessee doesn't play anyone the rest of the game. So
he also gets a stat pad game against Maryland.
Yeah, but like JT said, stats don't matter, so that game shouldn't matter.
I mean, stats matter a little bit.
No, you said stats don't matter. So I'm just saying
they matter a little bit, but it's about the Heisman moment. Okay, don't twist my words here.
I'm just using what you said. That's all.
Like 75% of it is the Heisman moment, and then there's 25 that's like stats and team record.
Okay.
No,
okay.
I'd say it's more like 20% team record, and then like 5% is maybe the statistics you put up.
But I mean, if we're talking the stats are going to decide this, Hendon Hooker has the better odds on that because Tennessee just tried to run up the score last week on Missouri. Like they had the foot on the pedal the entire game. It wasn't, oh, let's not get guys hurt. It was, we're trying to score a touchdown every drive. We're up 42 and there's 14 seconds left in the half. We're going for a touchdown.
I mean, Hendon Hooker only has, maybe what was this like 130 yards on CJ Stroud, but he also does have 405 rushing yards where CJ Stroud has not ran the football.
He had 76 rushing yards against Northwestern.
Well, it's not telling me that in the stat page I'm looking at right now. So
fuck you, Dan.
Just saying. No.
Okay, Dan, in fact, does not know the statistics.
I don't know the statistics, apparently.
It's a two-man race. CJ Stroud's winning the Heisman. He's getting his Heisman moment against Michigan, and then he's going to do the Desmond Howard in the end zone.
Yeah, is he?
Yeah.
And so if he does it, you're going to come on stream and show us your best Desmond Howard?
Yeah. Can we see it? Can we see a little preview? Is that
no.
possible?
No, not until the moment. You'll know it when the moment happens.
The moment happens, JT gets up, he calls us. He's like, "We're doing it right now. Get on. We're filming a
Clip it.
podcast."
Yeah. This has been the Boys and Ball Podcast. Thank you for checking in, stopping in for our college football segment. We'll see you on the flip side. Bye.